That was for you, Dave.
Love you, Dave.
Welcome back to the No Streetlights podcast. This self is Aaron.
And this self is Tim. We are two veterans who want to talk about the human experience.
We're hoping to encourage societal growth towards kindness through understanding. And Tim has thought of a beautiful way we can kind of achieve that with this show.
Yeah, think of us as a potato peeler, and the human experience is a gigantic potato. We just want to remove one small layer of suffering at a time.
So let's take a breath, relax, and be welcome.
Merry Christmas, Aaron.
Merry Crisis, Timothy.
Merry Crisis. To all of our fans, friends, and everybody celebrating, happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah. There's a litany of amazing...
Happy today.
Yeah, there we go. I like that. I have an extra pen here for you. Something about thinking about today is... I want to ask you a question. Just a simple question. Yeah. We're talking about today. And sometimes one of the hardest things about today is...
Yesterday?
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, the present... Sometimes the past can be tough.
Yeah.
When do you think we get closure?
I'm incredibly excited to talk about this because I am firmly of the belief that closure is a lie. I don't think that there is closure. I think things happen and then more things happen. I don't think that there is a point in time where something gets sealed away and you're beyond it. I think it just gets integrated. And I think the thing that most people are looking for is a way to stop or break overwhelming thoughts. Being overwhelmed thinking about this one thing. And they want closure, but really they want peace and quiet.
You're kind of talking more of acceptance, it sounds like.
In a way.
It sounds like acceptance is a more crucial mainstay than what you would define as closure.
Mm-hmm. I think when we think of closure, we think of being done with something.
Yeah. A finality.
Yeah, but I don't think that reality is that clean.
I am really glad you brought this up because that was my biggest issue with closure. Because it does feel, you brought it up and I wrote it down, and this is my favorite thing. My favorite note I've ever made is I just put the point. Closure isn't a point. It's not a point, right? Going back to thinking of expert, and maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse here, seems to be my favorite thing to do in these later episodes.
Watch out.
But it really kind of comes into perspective that it's not a single moment that you achieve closure. It's a hindsight, a retrospect, a looking back on it. Now I know there's a sense of closure I have. So defining it as a specific point when things get sealed away in finality is wrong. So I had to adjust my view of closure to see if I could even make it make sense, right? Because when I think about closure, I think of a really ugly geometric shape, like a potato. It just isn't even, right? But it keeps growing and it keeps running into small obstacles. There's a rock in the way, so it grows around that rock. Or maybe it needs to spread its roots down to go and get water in a different area. My point being, your life continues to grow. And when you look back on it, closure is a distortion in your life. The grief that you, or trauma or whatever it was, distorts your life. And closure is whenever you continue growing around it.
I like that. I like thinking of closure as literal wound closure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Scar tissue.
I'm glad that you brought up thinking of different concepts as closure, because another thing is passing out of being or graduating. You you're moving into a new space. And the reason I think that closure's a lie and that most people are just searching for a way out of their overwhelming thoughts or out from under their overwhelming thoughts is from our conversation with Sammy Marker when she said, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but she said, most people have 5,000 thoughts a day. Emetophobes have 12,000 thoughts about vomiting per day. And this is why I think most people aren't looking for closure or something. They're looking for a way out of the overwhelming thought patterns they're trapped in.
Trying to remove one layer of suffering.
And
or more, if possible.
The way that I have achieved this in my life is looking at it and accepting it. So I do think your language is correct here in that I'm speaking of acceptance.
I looked at closure as more of a seesaw, right? It's always tilting. Because to me, that doesn't feel like a finality, right? There's no way. A seesaw does not ever stop moving. There's always going to be movement on it. Well, unless something really heavy sits on one side and then nothing ever fills out the other side, then it just never moves. So it felt wrong. I was like, closure can't be a seesaw because it does imply a finality. So the next thing I wrote down was monkey's paw ? What do you think that means? Why do you think I put that? I'm just curious.
You've said it a few times recently in our real lives, this monkey paw thing. This thing that gives you what you wish for, but it's not really what you thought it would be. But I want to just point out this word that spontaneously arose for me when you were talking about the seesaw. Fulcrum.
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 The fulcrum. How do you spell fulcrum?
Fulcrum. And then when you were talking,
fulcrum,
explaining this concept more, the next thing I thought of was spectrum.
Spectrum?
Sometimes 100% is 100%. Sometimes 100% is 20%.
Oh, you are going to love where this conversation goes. Nice.
I am buckled in.
So going to the seesaw, seeing the fulcrum, going back to the spectrum. Monkey's paw, you're dead on, right? What if closure isn't what we think it's going to be? We always assume closure means like in the sense of like a breakup in a relationship. We always assume there's going to be closure of like, well, I moved on and they moved on and we're both happy now, right? That's a sense of closure. Chances are you probably have no idea if your previous significant other has moved on or not. So really, does that closure ever actually happen? Does that ever make sense? Is that real life or is this movie we're talking about?
That's almost exactly where my mind went as well whenever I was pondering this on my drive over, was exes.
Yeah.
Because being the who I am, I've engaged with thousands and tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And
yeah, you're very extroverted. I'm very introverted.
And this is why I think closure's a lie, is because I still think about every single one of those souls. Every single person whose life I've touched and who's touched my life, they're still a part of my being. So that's why I think there is no closure, there's just integration. You learn to accept that that's just how it was. You know, the more we question why was it this way or why did it have to happen that way, we're looking for justification when there is none. It's just, that's just what happened, man. Yeah.
Looking into what is the cause of suffering, do you think suffering could be completely removed?
Suffering there's a cause of suffering, and then there is a way to pass through suffering. Nirvana. Passing
through suffering would imply like integrating, right? In a way, like you learn to live with it.
Yeah. It's like with me and pain.
Yes.
Since pain is always with me, I don't think of it as this awful thing that comes and goes. It's just part of the experience.
When you were talking about integration, I was in the middle of writing something that is probably one of my favorite things I've ever written for some reason. And it is, today I sat with grief. We had tea. Tomorrow, I'll sit with grief again and we may fight. Talking about closure, and this is why I think closure is a real thing. I think closure exists because there's a sense of, it's not just acceptance. It's not just learning to be like, well, that happened, but it's also a continuation past that. You are living beyond what that situation is. And even though your closure is going to be a monkey's paw in this situation, it's not going to be what you think it is. I woke up today and made a cup of coffee and sat down and had breakfast with my wife. 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, I couldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have wanted to. I'd have been drunk, grabbing half-eaten Burger King off the table or whatever. So wouldn't you say there's a sense of closure that I've experienced, or a status of closure that I have achieved in some regard, to where now my life is continuing on in a meaningful way, but I've also accepted what's happened in the past?
That is completely valid. I'm glad that you have been talking about continuation, patterns, and then breaking, and seeing this change as closure. Where, for me, I don't know. I feel as though, damn, how do I words? I think what most people are looking for when they talk about closure is being okay not engaging or interacting with that anymore. Whenever that thing arises that you used to participate in, you see it and you go, no thanks. Like, you don't need it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that's probably what you're talking about with closure here. Which a lot of people like that I say, I retired from drinking, retired champion. I'm good.
Retired champion, I'm out.
Yeah. And a lot of people are looking for that, like, oh, I can retire from this activity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing that people are looking for, is being able, giving themselves that permission to let go and have that not be a part of their experience anymore. One more thing I'm going to throw at you before you try and piece this jigsaw puzzle together.
It's tough, but I'm trying.
Aristotle also spoke about, what if you had never been introduced to your religion or your nation or this concept or that concept. If you'd been born somewhere totally else and never encountered it, whenever you encountered it, how would you perceive it? Would it still ring out true in your mind, or would you have more questions?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very grateful to Lauren McNeese for the whole maybe I will, maybe I won't. Giving yourself that space, that grace to respond instead of react. I think that that's an incredible gift that is going to help with this, because whenever that thing pops up, you can say, maybe I will. Maybe later I will need to come back to this crutch.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not.
When it came to the idea of closure, I agreed in the sense that it's not a point, right? It's not a specific moment that you're okay. But if at some point I sit down with grief and we have tea, the next time I sit down with grief and we fist fight, and the time after that I sit down with grief and we bake cookies. These are...
I wouldn't recommend fighting sitting down. It's very uncomfortable.
It'd be awful. But
it's really bad.
My point is, at some point, it's okay if my status of closure isn't met. I feel closure now. And maybe later when I think about this, it might hurt. Yeah. And maybe I won't feel closure in that moment. But in this moment, I do. And maybe in the next moment, I will. I don't think closure is a single point. I think it's a status that can be applied to the traumatic event or whatever the situation is that you need closure on. The grief or the pain or the loss or whatever form of suffering you are facing. If you can look at that suffering and say, right now I feel I have closure. you can look at that same suffering later and say, right now I don't.
Yes, I think you're talking a lot about how, like the box analogy. You know, your grief is a ball in a box, and whenever it touches the walls, it hurts. And different days, the ball or the box are different sizes. Something I had to convey to one of my teams recently is that my depression has been big. I'm sorry I haven't been as engaged. I'm sorry I'm not doing as much. And like almost every single person on that team was like, me too. Shit sucks right now. It is so bad.
It's the big sad, from seasonal, what is it? Seasonal affective disorder. Yeah. And
Jake, show me $9,000.
And then it's just compounded on top of like your normal day-to-day stressors.
Yes.
It's tough.
It is. But a big thing is just letting it be. We don't have to grab a hold of it and wrestle with it. We can walk past it. That's my big thing that's kind of changed, that makes me curious and unsure about my rank, is the fact that I have let go of the need to know or not know, the need to be right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When something happens, I just accept it. I really do. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, is the ability to turn in, as I've said, a number 6 short form that is inadequate, and then do number 7. So many people just get stuck doing number 6 again and again and again and again. And that's what we teach them. 71 Rosemar Road on Monday and Wednesday night from 6 to 7 and 7 to 8. Please.
They have new training mats.
Is turn it in. Turn in your best, whatever you're turning in, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason why I think that closure's a lie, is because you can always come back to number 6. You can always revisit. You know, you said sometimes you're going to be okay with grief, sometimes you're not. And understanding that you are on that spectrum, and that at different times it's going to feel different ways. Another thing I do that people can't comprehend is listening to the radio on scan. But that's
a real thing. He does this.
That's because every station, something happens and I either like it or I don't like it, and then I let go of it. It's for me or it's not, and I move on.
It's an interesting test.
Yeah. And it's like a micro practice of letting go.
Yeah.
You know, Jukebox Hero came on my way over here, and I unscanned, and then it got distorted as I crossed the bridge into West Virginia, and then went down, and I couldn't hear it. And I thought, thank you. I really wanted to hold on to that song. I hit scan again. So I do think that there is a certain amount of micro practices you have to put in, or full practices, in order to attain this rank of closure. But I also think that you can have it up in the air. It can be Schrodinger's cat. You know, you can leave the box closed or you can observe it. And both these things are valid.
I'm wondering, what is the difference between acceptance and closure? So I understand we talked about the finality stuff, but in an emotional sense, like if you are acceptant of, you know, Jukebox Hero being changed or not being able to be listened to the rest of the song, that's perfectly fine. But is there a sense of closure that you could also have in that same situation? Like realistically, are you ever going to get a sense of closure because Jukebox Hero was skipped? And I understand it's a micro practice. We're kind of, you know, apples and apple skins.
English and algebra.
Yeah. It makes me think that, in a sense, does closure have to have a sense of catharsis? Is that the difference between closure and acceptance?
The difference between closure and acceptance. I think a big part of it is this word occupied. Are you occupied by this thought? Again, talking about 12,000 thoughts about the specific thing versus a baseline being 5,000 thoughts. Having more than twice as many thoughts as normal about a specific thing. I think people are looking to no longer be occupied with this pain or this guilt or this shame. And the only thing that they're missing is their own permission.
That agency.
Trying to shake everyone up and wake them up that we are making decisions. We don't have to keep repeating the same patterns. One thing that was difficult in a conversation I had, I talked about how my script is written for me to do certain things, but I am choosing not to do those things. You know,
like always.
Yeah. Because of the way we were raised and this that we went through and that we went through, we have an 80% likelihood of doing X, Y, or Z. But that's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
So I think that's the piece that people are missing. They feel like they're predisposed to this, so woe is me, I have to crash into this. But you don't.
It's like acceptance, but the opposite side.
Yeah.
It's like rejection.
Yeah.
Rejecting the other side of yourself or whatever.
Yeah. Something that I brought up in our pre-talks was, damn, what was it, Tim? It was mad important, and I told you with my mouth.
It was thoughts and how people don't question the validity of their thoughts.
Yes. Yeah. Whenever you have a thought, you just accept it as being true.
Yeah.
You don't look at the evidence. You don't dig deeper.
I am a podcaster. That is a true statement.
Whereas whenever I do something that is problematic and I think, wow, I'm an asshole, you then have to say, well, is that true? Or was I just having a hard time?
Yeah. So when you brought this up, I immediately wrote down in quotations, Tim is a piece of shit equals question mark.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I'm a piece of shit. I have done bad things in my life. I have suffered in my own different ways as well. But I don't think the qualifier, or I don't think I qualify for the term piece of shit. However, just the other day, I was cleaning and dropped something on my foot, and I was like, I'm such a fucking idiot.
Yep.
In that moment, I believed it because I just dropped that shit on my foot. But I'm not an idiot. I just dropped something. It happens to everybody. But I didn't question that. I didn't challenge that thought. I just let it happen, and then I continued on with my day. So I guess I let those words that, God, I'm a fucking idiot, just sit there all day unaddressed.
Grindhard Plumbing Co. This man makes incredible machines that should not work, and they work incredibly, and they break, and he fixes them, and he redesigns them all the time. The other day, he was making a twin turbo diesel Ferrari thing for Pikes Peak.
Wow.
And he messed up the roll cage a little bit and called himself an idiot. And I was like, yep. Because that Tuesday night that I wanted to buy out my contract because I sucked at Kung Fu and I couldn't figure it out and I couldn't get my shit together. We all have that. We all go through this dark night of the soul. And the way that we pass, the way that we get closure is letting go of that shit and not beating ourselves up for learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest things I've been teaching this go around with Kung Fu is people ask, was that wrong? Did that look weird? And I'm like, yes, of course it did. You're learning. Or they'll do something and I'll correct it. And they're like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, for what, dog? You are learning.
Me, every time I do long fist, I'm like,
sorry,
damn,
sorry. For what,
Ah.
dude? You're learning. Yeah. So, I think that's what a lot of people are missing is that grace.
I have a bad habit of saying sorry, and I have recontextualized why I do that. So if I say sorry to somebody, they'd be like, why? It's not your fault. I'm like, No, I know, but the universe isn't going to apologize, so I figured somebody should.
The thing that I want people to change is, instead of I'm sorry, I want people to say what they're sorry for. I'm sorry that I spoke out of pocket. You didn't deserve that.
Yeah, give it a name.
Whenever I'm sorry, you're sorry that I called you out on the shit you were doing that was
sorry
unacceptable.
You got caught. You got sorry you did bad. Like what?
Yeah.
What are you sorry about?
So I think that's one of the things that we're missing, and that I think will break out of that pattern, is when you complete the thought. What are you sorry for?
I do want to go back to closure a bit. Because in the discussion of acceptance, and this is kind of where I started reaching into as well, I wrote down, is closure sometimes acceptance? And I put C does not equal A, because I don't think so. I think there's a very distinct difference. But does that mean, is the difference because closure has to be cathartic? No, I don't think so. I don't think closure needs to be cathartic. But I also don't think it's just acceptance. I do think it's closure. So I wrote down I have two models here that I'm going to tell you about. One I like, one I dislike. You can tell me which one you think is which. I'll tell you the first model. So it's a scale. On one side, you have, let's call it grief, just to make it nameable. We have grief, really heavy. Every day, I go and add a rock to both sides. Let's call the other side closure, and this is grief. Every day I add a rock to both sides, just tiny little ones. Over time, it will eventually get close to weighing out. They'll never fully meet, they'll never stop moving. But over time, I keep adding to it every day, and then just a little bit. Now, when I thought about that, I said, maybe closure isn't the words we hear, but how we grow around and with the grief. This is why closure isn't symmetrical.
I'm kind of hung up on this symmetry thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a scale that is off balance and you add one unit to each side, it's not going to even out. It's going to remain imbalanced.
In the long scale, yeah, it's going to remain imbalanced because it can never fully even out. It never will. There's no finality in it. That's my point. That was the whole idea. Because if I just simply said you added weight over to the closure side, eventually closure will outweigh the grief. But that's not how it works, because sometimes grief is really fucking heavy. So if you add a weight to both sides, let's say the weight over here is 15 pounds and you're adding a 1 pound weight to both sides every day. And like 90 days, that 15-pound difference is going to matter, but it's not going to like ultimately be a huge deal.
I think I hear what you're saying. You're talking about dilution here.
Yeah.
Okay. Dilution. Interesting.
Yeah. Which is bringing me back to that idea that closure isn't about a specific thing, right? The words we hear or an experience or whatever. It's about how we learn to live around grief or trauma in a meaningful way. Not just living, right? Like if I accept that something terrible happened, I could drink myself to death and still accept it. But if I feel closure, I stop the drinking.
This feels like the whole 51% sure thing.
Yeah.
For UCMJ.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be certain. You got to be just 51%.
Yeah.
You have to be more sure that it's this instead of that. And that's what it is. But it also sounds like you're talking about something here lately about wanting to be over 80%. You want to be almost totally sure or more than mostly sure before you ship it.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of 51%, we're looking for 81%.
I like 81, yeah.
Yeah. So I do like that. I do like I think that kills a lot of the perfectionism, which is something that I'm trying to beat out of people around me, is not being able to submit the project. Tell me about this other system.
Yeah. I told you there was 2 models. The second one, I'm going to call it Tim's Avenue. It's Tim's Road. Okay.
So the first one is
Tim's scale.
15 pounds versus 115 pounds versus 100 pounds. 100 versus
Dilution.
115 versus 0 of 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the next one is the Avenue.
We'll call that, the first one was Tim's scale because it's just my scale. I just put it over there for you. My framing as I wrote it down. My next set of framing, I'm going to call it Tim's Avenue. So it's a gated community.
Okay. Piece of shit.
Sure. My house is right in the middle of this gated community. Every single day, I wake up and it is my responsibility to go and visit houses in this neighborhood.
Okay.
I don't have to visit every single house every single day. In fact, chances are I won't. But at some point throughout the week, I will visit that house. Sometimes I will go inside of these houses and I will enjoy my visit. Sometimes I won't. And sometimes I can't leave that house. Sometimes I need help to get out. This is Tim's Avenue. At the end of the day, no matter what house I'm visiting, I have my home to return to. And if the foundation is cracked on my home, I call in help. Help me fix the foundation so my house doesn't fall apart. Just because your house is broken or hurt or damaged doesn't mean it's no longer a home. So this is Tim's Avenue. Tim's cul-de-sac. What do you think of that?
Tim's community. I don't understand what you're trying to convey with this.
Let me bring it back to my quote I said earlier. Today I sat with my friend Grief and we had tea. Tomorrow I will see my friend Grief again. We may fight. That's the idea. Each house is a different emotion, a different thing that I'm experiencing: sadness, anger, grief, whatever, right? It can be complex. It can be it's not complex. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The houses are just meant to represent the emotions, right? I might visit my friend Happy every day, every single day. I might see Grief once a week. I might see Grief 5 times a week. I might see Happy once a week. It really is hard. It's hard to say how it's going to shape out. You know, I have the agency. I'm the one going to visit the houses. And sometimes when they let me in the house, sometimes my grief doesn't just let me go. Sometimes I need help to get past that, to get out of that house and get back to home.
Yeah, there's a I think it's an analogy that really helped me transition into new thought patterns. And it was, people think they're their feelings. And the way that this was expressed was, your feelings are koi in a koi pond. You aren't the koi, you are the pond. And that helped me so tremendously. And then later on, I was thinking about mind, body, and soul. You aren't the body. You aren't the mind. We are the soul that animates the body and the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of this is seeing things as a drop in the ocean. This thing that occurred is not going to define you forever. It's just something that happened.
It's going to put a weird shape in the oblong of life. Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about this, because a lot of people get caught up in depression's a really big one, especially right now during the holiday season. And I mean, you're an expert in depression.
What up?
But it's so easy to identify yourself as your emotion. Hi, I'm depressed. Hi, I'm anxiety.
Hello, I'm fine.
Inside out.
That's my name.
Yeah. It's so easy to identify as your emotions that you lose your identity. You lose who you are. And then Tim is just a piece of shit. I never question the validity of my own thoughts. When it comes to closure, I think it is real. And I think it's easier to attain than people allow themselves permission to do so. I think you can remove a layer of pain from closure by accepting that closure isn't always going to feel like closure. In this moment, I have closure, and the next I might not. But if I accept that, then I can at least remove a small layer of my suffering, because my expectation of what closure should be is now changed. And I understand that I am me experiencing my emotions. That's where I came to with this.
There's another concept that we've been talking about a lot lately, which is being alike in success and failure. Being unperturbed, being still, unaffected, this sort of thing. And I wonder how that comes into this conversation. Whenever you have closure, does that mean you're non-reactive?
When I think of my closure, it's a mess. There's happiness, there's sadness, there's pain, and I can focus on that pain if I really want to suffer. But that's not the primary emotion. I look back on my friend who's passed, and I think about our inside jokes and the stuff that we laughed about as kids. That hurt. That hurts so much. But now it doesn't as much. It still hurts. It's still there. I can really focus on it and really feel that pain.
You can poke the bullet wound if you want.
I can. Yeah. Yeah. It's like putting your hand on a hot iron. I could do that.
You can absolutely do that.
But I've already touched the hot iron by accident. I'm not going to do it on purpose. So I think that's kind of where closure fits. It's sitting with it. At some point, your acceptance. Let's say you've had 50 different situations where you now look back on it and you're like, I accept that happened. How many more pieces of acceptance have to be thrown in there for you to finally say that chapter's closed, or that there's a sense of closure to it? That was Aaron in his 20s. This is Aaron in his 30s. This is a whole different guy. This is Theseus' ship, but Aaron.
Yeah.
At some point, the ability of hindsight, or the proceedings with time or something, you will eventually look back and say that there is a sense of closure there. I guess I could call that closure.
Yeah. I really think that we are talking a lot here about normalization and being able to let go of the past, being able to move on. And we've talked about liberative nihilism and pessimistic nihilism and all that. And I think it is, to me, it's relieving to think closure is a lie. To think that every person that I've affected and still lives in my heart, like, letting that be part of the soup forever. But another part is losing it in the vast ocean of experience. So I think that we can either say there is closure or there isn't closure. And both answers are right. I think it's okay for me to not have closure, to have every single experience still going on, to still have the tens of thousands of people on my mind that I've seen in my long, long years, in my 7 or 8 times around the planet. I can integrate that. And one thing that has changed for me is I only have today. Every day is today. There is no tomorrow. There is no yesterday. And that's helped let go of these expectations of having done or achieved or whatever. We just are a process, and you have to learn to just be the process instead of trying to be a completed project.
So I think what we're naming the layer today, right? We started the episode with a simple question of, when do you think we get closure, or do you think closure is real? I think we started with, when do you think we get closure? But we're walking away with 3 different terms. We have closure, we have acceptance, and we have normalization. And I think at the end of the day, I can't tell you what you experience. I label it as closure. That's how I feel. That's what I think is the correct term for it. Normalization fits just as well. Acceptance, I think I think there's more to it than just me accepting the past. But that's for me. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you look at it as acceptance, if you look at it as normalization, or you look at it as closure, neither of these are wrong. And I think the most important part, and where we can help people understand the suffering to remove here, is agency and integration. Integrate. Grief is around the corner. I can't control that. I've experienced grief, and the next time I experience it, it might be even worse. I don't know. But I know I can integrate that in my life. I know I can accept it, and I have the agency to do that.
I think one last thing that we will give the listeners is that they can switch their status in any sport to retired. You know, you love whenever someone offers me a drink and I tell them I'm retired champion.
You can always retire champion.
Recently, and much to his horror, I told my kung fu master that I did not want to be a warrior anymore. Just want to be a disciple.
Huh.
Because you can only go to war so many times. But if you're just here to learn, you can do that forever.
You'd rather be a soldier in a garden.
I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a warrior, or a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think giving people the agency to retire. And you can also say, I'm trying to quit. Hey man, you want a cigarette? Trying to quit, man.
Yeah. Retired champion smoker last year.
Yep. So, what's that bringing up for you? How do we...
In a really weird way, you just brought some closure to the episode. That's what it feels like. If this episode was written out in an actual physical, like, is this a circle conversation or a square?
OODA loop.
Loop. It would be a very strange looking oblong conversation that we just had. Amoeba. Look up amoeba if none of you know what that looks like. Oh, do you know which model was my favorite?
The avenue versus the scales? Dilution versus sometimes needing help?
I would call it agency, but yeah.
Which is your favorite?
Avenue.
Really?
Yeah.
I am a stones in the bucket kind of guy. I just have to do so many actions. I turn in so much work.
I've been hearing the phrase a lot lately, work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I have begun hating it because I don't do either of those. I don't work very hard and I don't work very smart. I just work, dog.
Yeah.
I put one foot in front of the next and just keep going.
Stepping.
Somebody's like, dude, you could be taking a bike. I'm like, yeah, I could, right? I could get in a damn car and do these steps, but I'm going to walk it because I can.
Yeah.
I don't want to work harder and I don't want to work smarter. I just want to put in the damn work. With that being said, I really want to hear what you guys think of closure, acceptance, and normalization. I think these are very important things to consider. And, you know, sometimes that's all you need. Just be on the same page.
A last true thing that I'm going to tell you is if you have an art class that is based on sculpture and one of the two classes has to turn in the perfect vase, and that is their whole, they just have to turn in one perfect vase. And you have another class where they have to produce as many as possible. The better vases come from the volume class. The more projects you turn in, the better you get. Mm-hmm. It's not about turning in a perfect project. It's about turning in another project. having learned another thing.
Yeah.
And as you get farther, it does get harder. That's a big thing that we've been teaching in Kung Fu too, is every single step, it is more complicated. It's infinitely more complicated every degree. But that's not terrifying once you realize that you've made it this far, that you haven't fallen yet, or that every time you've fallen, you've managed to get back up.
Yeah, tampering your expectations in a way, right? Like you don't go swimming in the ocean thinking you're going into a kiddie pool, right? Like
moving forward, one thing that we're going to look for is for people to have the grace to stay down for an extra round. Talking about, getting knocked down 10 times, getting up 11. It's okay if you take a round off. Like, if you are down and out, you're allowed to take a nap, dog. Like, you can take time off between training camps.
You can retire champion for the day.
Yes, absolutely. And if the only thing you do is survive, bravo, Zulu.
Dude. Spot NAM, spot map.
I think I'm going to start carrying around gold stars. And whenever I give them out, people are going to be like, oh, you gave me a gold star. And I'll be like, yeah, dog, 1 out of 5.
1 out of 5.
But it's a start. If you don't get the first star, you won't get the second. Don't get the second, you won't get the third.
How do you eat an elephant?
I don't. I'm a vegetarian.
That's good.
1 bite at a time. Classic Kung Fu saying.
Classic. What?
Big steppers. Left
Yeah.
foot, right foot.
Left foot, right foot.
1 bite at a time.
Well, yeah, I think I've sold you enough information today.
I am stoked with how this went.
Me too.
I thought we were going to talk about a lot of different shit, and we didn't. We talked about this.
Thank you all very much for watching. If you are brand new to the channel or over here on Spotify or Apple, please consider subscribing, ring the notifications so you know whenever new episodes drop. With that being said, we do want to give a huge shout out to the fans that keep this show running, our patrons. Aaron, whomst do we have?
At the top tier, we have Atticus Thatcher, Nicholas Horton, Jason Grooms, and Eric Spears. All 3 of those 4 guys.
Yeah, all 3 of those 4 guys, and one of them eats glue. And then at our next shout out tier, we have Ketria Hausner and Highland Markle.
Actual angels.
Literal, like, walking, talking ASMRs on this planet.
But maybe the most important person on the show is you, the listener. Thank you.
This show cannot be substituted for professional medical advice, nor would we ever want it to be. So if you do need help now, please call 911 or text or call 988. If you want protracted support, you can go to betterhelp.com/NSLP, where you can get 10% off your first month, and it helps the channel out a lot. You can get help on your schedule at however you want.
The help you deserve on your terms. What's
Aaron,
better than that?
Aaron's the word guy, not me.
The thing we're bringing back. Share this episode with whoever popped into your mind while listening.
Yeah.
We need to connect.
And if you guys wildly disagree with what we're talking about here, leave a comment down below. Let's talk about it, because that's what we want to do. We want to have these conversations. So we respect your opinions, and yeah, we'll be here reading and responding.
The thing I'm ready to be most is wrong.
God. More acceptance.
How do we
Be good to yourselves and each other.
We love you, and you are worthy of that love. Peace.
They're here to spark change. Light the way. Understand that we can break the chains. Kindness grows when we open our minds. Take a breath, you're right on time.
No street lights, but we're finding our way. In the dark, but we've got something to say. Lessons learned and stories untold.